South Africans are making use of Airbnb to travel around the country. In fact, it's supported around 50,000 jobs and has contributed to over 23.5 billion rand to the economy last year. Now, that's an 11.5% increase from pre-COVID times. And that's according to the latest report, and that's the Genesis Analytics commissioned by Airbnb. We've got Velma Corcoran, who joins us, and she's the regional lead Middle East Africa at Airbnb. Thank you very much for your time this morning. I hope I didn't get your surname wrong, because I was now overthinking it. So worried. And then I worry that I did get it wrong anyway. Thank you for joining us this morning in studio. And let's start with some of the big highlights of this particular report that you've commissioned. And obviously it's indicating that the tourism industry, or rather travel, is getting back to levels that we last saw before the pits of the pandemic.
Absolutely. So I think the headline of the report is Airbnb is bringing great benefit to South Africa. Actually, we more than doubled our growth, or our contribution to GDP, from 2019 to 2022. So you said it was a 11.5% increase. It's actually a 115% increase. So that's 23 billion rand to the South African economy, supporting 50,000 jobs. I think what's exciting about that is that this is inclusive growth, because a lot of that growth is driven by South Africans who find that the platform gives them a more affordable, accessible way to travel, and they're not traveling to the usual tourism hotspots like Cape Town and Stellenbosch. 7 out of 10 of our fastest growing places are outside of main tourism hotspots, places you and I probably haven't heard of, Impendle and KZN, Nala in the northwest. And what's happening is that when people are traveling, they're spending money. They're spending up to 3,000 rand a day in local businesses, shops, coffee shops, restaurants. And because this growth is being spread, often to places where there isn't formal tourism, it's also providing opportunities for South Africans to benefit from travel. So we saw that South Africans earned more than 4 billion rand in 2022 from hosting on Airbnb.
Yeah, and very interesting, because I suppose it also speaks to the health of the domestic traveller. We unfortunately not benefiting as much from international travellers yet, but tell us what it says about the health of the domestic traveller, and very interestingly that they're going to the outskirts of what would normally be the attractive sites.
So domestic travel is really was the backbone for travel during COVID. And I think what happened was, obviously people were limited in their options. They couldn't travel overseas. People were also stuck at home. And so started to think about how can they use travel as a way to connect with their family and friends, starting to look at destinations initially within driving distance of where they were staying. And I think what has happened is that there's almost a culture of travel. People going away for weekends with family and friends and exploring all the kind of nooks and crannies that we have to offer in South Africa.
Does Airbnb still have some issues that they deal with? I mean, in South Africa, we've got water issues, we've got issues around the energy crisis. And so how does it maneuver around those particular issues to make sure that the traveller is still getting the best experience off the platform?
So I think one of the, there are a number of issues.
Yeah.
One of the issues is obviously load shedding, especially, I think in the South African context, South African travelers know what to expect, but international travelers don't understand this notion of load shedding. So we've really encouraged our hosts to be very upfront about what to expect. I think more and more people are investing in alternative energy solutions, but it's expensive. We also recently ran a campaign with Takealot, where we started to give vouchers off to our hosts who wanted to buy kind of any goods that could support them with load shedding. So, lights, UPSs for Wi-Fi, and so forth. So really trying to do our bit to make sure that the host and guest experience is as seamless as possible. I think the other thing is that, obviously safety and security is a big concern for travel coming to South Africa, both for domestic and international travel. Interestingly, as part of this report, 77% of guests said that they feel really safe and secure staying in an Airbnb.
Yeah.
And I think it's also because you have this connection to a local host who can, tell you about what to do, tell you where to go, not to do, where not to go, and also is on standby for any questions.
Yeah, and I suppose despite the challenges, spending a little bit extra on safety and security or a little bit extra on alternative forms of energy, one of the highlights is that an Airbnb platform or home or whatever you want to call it is a lot more affordable still. And this is probably why consumers, which are constrained, you did allude to this earlier, would choose this as an alternative option when choosing to travel.
I think a big part of our growth has actually been driven by the cost of living crisis on both sides. So guests who see this as a much more affordable and accessible way to travel. So we saw a 33% increase in domestic travel from 2019 to 2022. But on the hosting side, 50% of our hosts say that Airbnb, that income helps them contribute to the rising cost of living. So they're using it to make ends meet. A lot of hosts are doing this occasionally. So these aren't big businesses, but it's someone who's got a room in their home or a little garden cottage. And on average, they're making 32,000 Rand a year, which is not a great amount of money if you're running a big business, but if you've got a side hustle and you're trying to pay school fees or pay off a little bit against the bond, it's a very useful additional income stream.
Yeah, very interesting insights indeed. Thank you very much for joining us. That, of course, a conversation around the trends within the Airbnb space and the contributions that have been made there.